What's happening, folks? So just going to do my weekly outlook, monthly down to 4 hour, maybe touch on the 1 hour, and just go from there in terms of what I'm looking for this week, areas I'm paying attention to, and maybe where I'll be interested in taking trades from. So just looking at price on the monthly, I like what I'm seeing here. We were obviously at the top of the resistance with the previous month. We closed above. We're sort of in the final week of the month at the minute, and we've pulled down, formed the lower wick. Now we're like pushing up. There's the potential for the further continuation to the upside. It's going to drop to the weekly, daily 4 hour and see if that is supported. Of course, whereas there still is the possibility for this candle to close bearish below the resistance. Ultimately, price is trading within the resistance zone of previous monthly resistance looking left. That's all really on the monthly for me. So I'm looking upside. Weekly, is that supported? It is supported in the form of last week we formed the higher support. So again, we're trending up. We pushed up to the top, formed the resistance, pulled back because we're bullish overall, formed the higher support. Now what I would be looking for this week is, does price respect this support? Do we open, pull down, go bullish? Do we open, go bullish? You know, what I'm looking for is, does this weekly candle, is the resistance, or sorry, the support respected? So of course there's going to be some form of downside, I would expect. But ultimately I'm looking for further continuation from this. Is this supported on the daily? Well, at the minute we're sort of in the resistance zone of the daily. What I do like is we've closed above most recent resistance, which is the mid-range. Now we're pulling back. Is this potentially an area where price finds support? Do we maybe come down into a previous structure level before further continuation? Does price open bullish, push up, and then when we have some from a downside, we can respect this resistance and this previous resistance for more upside? Or does price maybe just range? Do we open down so much that when if we do start to pull back, does price respect these mid-range levels for further downside? If we close below them, and then on the 4 hours for ranging. So I just sort of bring on my zones. The main areas I'm going to be paying attention to really, if I just go to the monthly, weekly, we're obviously trading within this weekly resistance zone, so just to be paying attention in terms of especially this monthly level here, first point, or this weekly level, sorry, first point of contact for downside to see do we respect that. Drop the daily and 4 hour. So from a structure perspective, this sort of range from the start of the month is what's holding price up at the minute. Clearly see that when we broke out of it, we pulled back to this area, found resistance twice, downside, come back up, stayed within here, broke to the upside. Now price is remaining within this support zone and this resistance zone. For me, I'm not going to draw my resistance zone from, let's say, here, which you could do, but the reason I'm not going to do that is because this is still respected. You know, this is what's created this. Yes, I could go to this, but I've already got levels here, so I know I'm not just going to potentially buy within here. But if price can maybe hold structure above, no reason why I can't. So main areas I'm going to be paying attention to this week is, of course, this resistance zone and this support zone. Does price respect here, or we maybe see something like this further upside? But looking at price last week on Thursday, brilliant buy opportunities, failure to break down here, support, upside, same again, pull back, support, upside, and now price is sort of closed and trading within. So first point of contact is the range low support. So that's going to be my first area of interest for buys. So I'm just going to mark that on here. Green ray. Ultimately, price could come deeper. Again, if we do come into, I'm going to be looking at this overall support zone. Right, this overall support zone and this overall resistance zone as my next area to see what happens, because I wouldn't be surprised to see if price comes a lot deeper. But what happens in here, we'll be looking to see, can this area be respected? Does price form maybe some form of support? And then this is maybe where the push comes from, so there's some form of downside in the week. And it's just kind of like, well, where's the structure going to form? I would really like this to be respected, because selling into this could potentially be downside on the basis of you're buying into support, you're in a resistance zone. See, for opportunities, you'd be buying away from it. So this is where I'm going to be paying attention to as well if we do come deeper, because essentially if we can break below, and then if price fails to remain below and breaks back above, then this area is still going to be an area to be looking for options, for me, in my opinion. So you could really say that there's potentially two ways I could trade this. Price can come down, we can form support, then I can buy up, or if we come below, fail to stay below, break back in to this zone, I can buy up. Essentially price has broken out and created a new target. So as much as this looks like rejection, right, because you look at it on the daily, we close within the resistance zone of the daily, we fail to continue out and form a new target outside on this time frame. So that could be, you look at this and say, oh, this is failure to break out and remain out, right, because we didn't close outside and above the daily resistance zone. That could just be price breaking out to form a new target. And ultimately, the way I'm just looking at this is we've come up, broken out of this range, formed the target, we've come back into the previous structure. So I just be waiting for price to form support, and then I can look to play that target, ultimately play continuation potentially. I was looking at this on the 1 hour. It looks very good. Price is pulled in, formed support, formed lower resistance. So see when that resistance gets broken back above here, that could potentially provide good opportunities to play that overall triangle. And if price then pushes and comes back in, potentially manage the option. But that's just a thought process. That's maybe an option to buy. But again, paying attention to sort of these levels, this 4-hour resistance, buying into resistance, and that sort of stuff. So looking at price on the daily as well, or sorry, on the 4-hour, when price was here, I was sort of looking at myself and I was like, well, if we actually get above here, what is there left? And based on the 4-hour, I've sort of marked up this 4-hour support, this 4-hour resistance zone high, and this 4-hour resistance. So for me, if I just go left, this is what I was looking at. So first and foremost, what I had was, I had this zone here, right? And what I was thinking of was, well, this is the support, or this is the resistance zone, this is the support. This resistance has created this, right? And this support has created this support and this support. So essentially this is the zone, right? most recently, after this, where we're playing within. Because essentially what I could do as well, if price comes above this, I could say, oh, it makes sense to buy, but then I'm banning the support and resistance. So there is a possibility for price to then do that, right? Which isn't the best sign. Then of course you've got this resistance and this resistance zone. So what I'm sort of just looking at here is what I'm actually going to do is see, instead of the support, I know this support has created this resistance. So I'm just going to mark this up. This is more recent and more relevant, in my opinion. I'm going to lock that, lock this. So I know that within this resistance zone and this support zone, what levels could be, what levels are there within there that price could potentially react at. Well, I've got this 4-hour resistance, this resistance zone. I know above that is clear. Of course there is this level, there's levels in here, but just to keep it short and sweet and simple, and higher time frame levels, got a resistance here, resistance zone, and then this resistance. So I know that if price is where price is right now, which is here, I mark those levels up and I come out of the replay tool and see what's happened. So this wick reaction has reacted exactly where it has because of that 4-hour resistance left. Then I look at the resistance zone high, and this is where buying on where price has reacted most recently. So I know that these two levels are still very much important and relevant, because if they weren't, price maybe wouldn't have reacted at them. I've got a clear reaction here, got a clear reaction at the top of the zone. So I know that although we have closed outside and cleanly and come back in cleanly, safer buying opportunities are going to be above here, right? Because not only am I going to be above this range, I'm going to be above previous 4-hour resistance zone. So safer buying opportunities should be above here, because I'm not buying into these levels, I'm buying away from them. So that's going to be an next area for me to buy. Obviously within the range, I could buy in here. You know, there's every chance that if price say changes structure on the 1 hour, and we come up here, price forms a new target, comes back to previous structure, maybe stalls about and comes into here, for instance, I could just play this range. You know, ultimately what I'm looking at is this. Price can close above here and remain above here. There's no reason why I can't look to target the target, because ultimately the idea is this triangle, depending on where the support forms, that is the overall idea on the 4-hour. So if we can remain above the structure, then I can play that idea and target that new target. Of course, because we're trading in an area where the most recent price action in this area looking left is way back in like 2000 and what, fuck, I don't know, it's a long time. You know, it's way back in what, 2016, right? So the easiest thing to do and the best thing to do would probably just to be to wait for new structure to form and then target the new structure. So whether or not price pushes into here and then comes back and revisits the previous structure point, then that's going to be easier to trade that. Potentially taking like breakout trades here, playing to an idea that the most recent price action is fucking, you know, 11 years ago or something. So of course, if price is trading up and around this region at a volume time, like London Open, or there's some form of news, then there's no reason why I can't maybe look to enter a trade and push into a profitable position, and then look to maybe just take profits, um, and that sort of stuff, and take action there. But that's going to be an area where I'm going to be looking to potentially trade from, is above the zone and above the resistance. Structure lows make sense to buy from here, because we can clearly see last week that this is an area to buy. An area to buy as well is going to be above here, like I mentioned. But again, these sort of buys are more riskier, I would say. But it makes sense from a structure perspective. It's just depending on, does it fit your appetite? What does price look like on the day? What sort of structure? What new structure have we formed? And what levels are relevant? So, although this is an area which makes sense to buy to me, doesn't mean that I may well trade when we get there. But I would rather trade here up than trade here up and potentially get reaction or rejection from this resistance, because we're below it. So essentially, price is trading within this zone, so price could just ping pong in here. An early indication of further upside would be as if we're breaking above this and hold structure above here, and I can play that idea and potentially further. So that's what I'm going to be looking for buys. You just have a look and see, if I was a seller, where would I sell from, where it makes sense. Like if I just ignored everything and looked at the most recent stuff, I could say that price being below here makes sense to sell, and it would make sense to sell below here with some form of structure. But again, I know that below here is trading into a previous support zone and a previous resistance zone, so these are potentially areas where price could potentially find support or upside. And it would be essentially, it would be selling at support. But if I just look at most recent price action, which is this, clearly see that there's clean traffic here, right? So there is every option that if price closes below here and holds structure below, there's no reason why I can't target that, and then potentially look to play continuation down to the most recent support. But again, holding longer term positions in here might not be wise, because overall structurally price is bullish, and until price closes below and confirms that it can remain below with a change in structure on the 4-hour, then I'm not so keen on sells, because essentially price could just pull deeper before potentially further upside. Then the move down here could potentially look like a fake out to the downside, and price change in structure in here back to the upside. But if price closes below and there is some form of maybe upside, price says, you know what, I'm not really fancying it, can't continue up, puts in lower resistance, that's going to be an option to target this, because this is most recent, potentially further. So sales may make sense from here, in my opinion, which is below the structure, but price will then, in my opinion, have to show me that it can remain below by some form of lower resistance below here. So again, I'm going to mark it, but I may not trade it because I don't like what I see or something like that. And that would probably be it. Is any more downside from here is all going to make sense relative to structure. So I don't want to go any deeper than that, any further than that. Just in terms of areas to pay attention to, got daily resistance, which is also a 4-hour resistance, so I can kind of keep that the same. My weekly, Got the weekly resistance there, monthly resistance there. Just looking at this structurally, it's just pushed out, broken structure in terms of the most recent resistance, pulled into this previous structure. If price is going to continue bullish, we're going to have some form of downside before we have more upside. Does the upside start from here? Or does price open, we come deeper into this previous structure, which is in here, or even deeper, and then some form of upside? I mean, ultimately, we're bullish until the support's broken here, which is way down at 160. I can't really imagine price coming that deep, but essentially it could do, because price can do what it wants. But from a buyer's perspective and structurally, I would be looking for this mid-range structure to hold price to the upside, and it seems to be doing that nicely. We can remain above here, rare chance of upside in my opinion. Target's top of the range, continuation out. But where is price at the minute? This is the overall range. We're above the mid-range, we're in the upper half. That gives greater chance of upside, but for that to occur, structure might need to remain intact, because if we start to break down, that's also looking like selling from the top of the range. We can clearly see that when we're up at this resistance, tap into it once, pull back, tap into it a second time, pull back, break it the third time, then pull back into it. So as much as it looks like a good area to buy from, we're still struggling to sort of get out of this overall range, in my opinion. You just want to have a look at, is there any key areas? I'm just going to mark up. Hold on, let me just bring on my pulls again. Friday. I'm just mainly going to be paying attention to sort of this structure from here. Really, that's all I really need. Resistance. Do we find support at this previous support? Do we come down a bit deeper, find support? If we get above this, this is the mid-range of this range, which is going to be a change in structure potentially to the upside. Does this area then hold as an area for price to close above, and then hold support above for more upside, which then is potentially going to offer areas? Because for me, in my opinion, I could say, well, I could just make sense to buy above here, right? Because clean candle, but we can clearly see that this low and this low has reacted off of this resistance and this resistance, daily 4 hour. So to me, this is still relevant regardless of this being super clean. And the last thing I would want to do is potentially buy into this and see rejection, right, and get caught. So that's why, in my opinion, it's safer to buy above 172. So I think that's what I'm going to do, is just highlight this as sort of the mid-range level, and it makes, although it makes maybe sense to buy above it, be very careful of buying into this level, because I can see that this has been respected recently on Friday. So I don't want to just ignore the fact that that's there, because this is a clean candle and we should mirror that to the upside. So I'm just going to lock that and make a note of that. So that's more so the areas I'm paying attention to. My weekly outlook, areas to buy, areas to sell. But realistically, that's the only structure I need to pay attention to, is just this. Currently within a 4-hour range, and that's all.